Hey, Chrissy, you're live.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. I'm Chrissy Rosenthal with the Lactation Network. I'm super excited to be here with you today. Talk a little bit about breastfeeding support, about the Lactation Network, and about breastfeeding in general. So let's go ahead and dive in. So, who is the Lactation Network? We are the largest network of IBCLCs, of lactation consultants across the country. We have LCs in every state, and our LCs provide lactation consultants from the prenatal period all the way through weaning. And we do home visits, office visits, virtual visits, really kind of basically whatever you're looking for. And the key thing, the really exciting thing is when you see a lactation consultant through the Lactation Network, it's covered under your insurance. So no cost to you, completely covered under your insurance from beginning to end. You'll never get a bill. So that's super exciting. Um, let's talk about breast milk for a second. Why is lactation support so important? Well, we know that breast milk is the gold standard for nutrition for your baby, right? I always say there's lots of ways to feed your baby, and nobody is anti-formula. In fact, there are parents who do what we call combo feeding, breast milk and formula. So whichever way works best for you to feed your family is obviously your choice. But if your goal is to breastfeed, then we want to make sure that you have high quality lactation support, the best support available to you. I know we all know, we hear about the benefits of breastfeeding. There are tons and tons of benefits of breastfeeding. Your babies receive lots of health benefits, both short term and long term for their entire life. One thing I feel like is not talked about as much, which is exciting to me as well, is that the breastfeeding parent also receives health benefits. So we know if you're breastfeeding, your risks for things like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, osteoporosis go down with each month that you spend breastfeeding in your life. So there are really, really impactful, important benefits for breastfeeding for both the baby and for the breastfeeding parent. You might have also heard that about a year ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, changed their recommendation for breastfeeding. So it used to be the recommendation was to aim for a year and beyond. And then last June, they changed the recommendation to line up with the World Health Organization and UNICEF to reflect global standards. So the new recommendation is to aim for 2 years and beyond, as long as parent and baby want to. Now, whenever I say that, especially for parents who have not breastfed before, it can seem like super overwhelming, like, that's a long time, like, I don't know how it's gonna go. Totally okay. The way the recommendation is worded is they recommend exclusive breast milk for the first 6 months. So sometimes you'll hear 6 months, and then that's a little confusing because of the way it's worded. So if just breast milk for the first 6 months is optimal. 6 to 12 months is breast milk and the introduction of solids. And then after that, and really it's just truly as long as you want to breastfeed, it continues to be beneficial, is breast milk is supplemental after a year. So whatever level of breastfeeding you and baby want to do continues to be beneficial. That's another myth that's out there, is that breastfeeding has no health benefits after a year. So that's not true. Continues to have health benefits for you and baby as long as you breastfeed. So important to know. But circling back to that, in terms of goals, um, even though that is the recommendation, that's the optimal situation. I'm a big believer in setting a goal, and then we can always pivot and make it work for you. So there are lots and lots of ways to breastfeed, and we can kind of change, what you're doing, how much breastfeeding you're doing, and how it's working for you. So that's really important. So to that note, when I talk about different ways to breastfeed, some people exclusively put the baby at the breast. Some people exclusively pump. That means they pump the milk, the baby never goes to the breast, and the baby gets all breast milk via a bottle. Most families do a combination of breast and bottle, especially if you're going back to a job. Um, that baby's going to need to get a bottle. And then, as I said, there's also combo feeding, which is a combination of formula and breast milk. So lots of ways to do this. Okay, it's not just a one size fits all. And I think that's important to know. So when we talk about breastfeeding support, one number that is a little sobering, I guess, is that 83% of US parents initiate breastfeeding. So they start off day one wanting to breastfeed their baby, but only 25% of parents are exclusively breastfeeding their baby at 6 months. So if you think back to that goal that I just shared a second ago from the AAP, you can see that big drop from people who are intending to breastfeed, wanting to breastfeed, that's their feeding goal. And at 6 months, it's 25% compared to the original 83% who started off breastfeeding. Why is that? Why does that happen? Well, we know why it happens. A few reasons. One is the lack of prenatal education. So prenatal breastfeeding is so, so important. I'll circle back to this in a few minutes, but we know that the two main indicators for breastfeeding success, for meeting your feeding goals, are connecting with an IBCLC prenatally and taking a breastfeeding class, and the support of a partner or a support network. So if you have those two things in place, your chances of meeting your feeding goals skyrocket. So, so, so important. Other reasons that people don't meet their goals is the lack of clinical support, lack of partner support, and just a ton of myths that are out there that sabotage your feeding goals. So let's take a second and talk about your postpartum team. Ideally, you're surrounded by quite a few experts who are supporting you in this postpartum period, but everyone has a different role. So this is just kind of a little glimpse at ideally who makes up your postpartum support team. So let's take a look at each of those. So your pediatrician and your OB or your midwife, they have a very specific role. The pediatrician is your baby's doctor. The OB or midwife is your provider, right? Neither one of them are really focused on working through breastfeeding issues and goals. And I think that that's a misconception that some parents have. If this is their first baby, is that the pediatrician will provide all the breastfeeding support, and unfortunately, their appointments are just not long enough to provide an in-depth lactation consultation, and it's also not their area of expertise. It's very much a specialty, so that's important to know. Additionally, I always highly recommend if you don't already have a mental health provider, knowing where to reach out for mental health support is so, so important. One of my favorite resources is called PSI, Postpartum Support International, and their website is postpartum.net. And on that website, they have tons and tons of great information. They also have a hotline, and they can help you work through how to connect with a mental health provider should you need it. So as I mentioned a second ago, support from a partner, so, so important. So what does that mean? In the prenatal period, it's really important to talk to your partner, for you two to sit down, talk about feeding goals. When are you going to introduce a bottle? Who's going to cover nights? If your partner is going back to work, when are they going back to work? What is support for you going to look like should you need support while they're at work? All of these things are super important. If you look over at the corner of the screen, this, again, just a very powerful statistic. We know that when breastfeeding parents have the support of a partner, their odds of still breastfeeding at 6 months are 5 times that of those who don't have or don't report that they have the support of a partner. So really, really dramatic difference. One of my little pet peeves is when people say, well, the partner's role when the baby's, in the newborn stage is they can change diapers. And so I feel like our poor partners, there's so much more they can do. I definitely encourage people to include partners in prenatal classes, all your classes really. And also, I'm going to talk in a second about private prenatal consultations. So include your partner as much as you can. I would say just more brains, more memory. Everyone's kind of sleep deprived, so the more people, the better there. And then, of course, support from family and friends is essential as well. So their role often is helping you so that you can focus on the baby. You're going to need recovery time. You're from birth. You're going to be exhausted, most likely for the first few weeks. Babies tend to be nocturnal. That means that often you're up all night. They're sleeping a little bit longer during the day. So, friends and family who arrange for meals or run errands for you or come over and just help you pick up the house or just whatever you need so that you can focus on the baby is really super helpful. And now IBCLC. So I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning, but IBCLC stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. And in the lactation world, there are many, many providers. In fact, in our profession, we say it's a little bit of alphabet soup because IBCLCs are the highest credentialed lactation experts. And there are lots and lots of other roles which are super important. Um, but I think it's important for parents to know like who the like expert is when they need support. And under the Affordable Care Act, parents are entitled to lactation support. At the Lactation Network, we only contract with IBCLCs, so you are getting the highest level of lactation support, the specialist. So when you see an IBCLC, we will do private consultations with you. You know, they generally run an hour to 2 hours. Like I said, they can be in home, in office, telehealth. We'll go over medical history. We'll go over what's going on with the baby, probably view a feed, but that's not always necessary. Maybe weigh the baby, see how much they're transferring, and most important, put together an evidence-based plan for you to help you resolve whatever issues going on. I also think it's really important, even if breastfeeding is going really well, you know, you don't wait for a problem. Like we have information that we can share with you and make your experience easier, better, and be there to answer any questions that come up. And lots of questions do come up. So important fact, 70% of Lactation Network patients are still breastfeeding at 6 months. So compare that to the 25% who are, you know, very different stats, right? So support makes a huge difference. So when should you connect with an IBCLC? Ideally prenatally for a one-on-one consult. Of course, we want you to take a prenatal class as well. You'll probably see an IBCLC in the hospital if you deliver in the hospital, and then we are there with you through the entire postpartum period, including weaning, from prenatal all the way through weaning. How do you sign up and find out if you can get connected with an IBCLC from beginning to end? We'll just go to our website, tln.care. There we go. Just go to tln.care, click request a consultation, and then usually within a day or so, you'll get an email back letting you know whether we can cover you under your insurance. If you don't have an IBCLC, we will connect you with somebody locally. So we'll take care of that for you. Should you find you don't, you know, maybe you don't really connect with that person, we will connect you with another one. So we've got you covered there. If you aren't able to get coverage through us, and we can't accept all insurance plans, but do know that there's still help out there for you in your community. There are almost always local breastfeeding support groups. If not, there are virtual support groups available to you. Often hospitals have outpatient resources. And then two of my favorite websites are La Leche League and Kelly Mom for evidence-based information. Okay, so here's our little QR code as well. If you want to scan that, that will also just take you to the right place on our website. And I will be heading over to our booth to answer questions. If you want to connect over there, ask me any of your breastfeeding questions, ask me any questions about TLN. I will be there live for the next hour or so, and then I will be checking in all day to answer questions that you leave there as well. All right. I think that's probably it for timing. Right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.